Hi, I'm Aaron Stash with the Electric Home Show. We're here in Oak Park, Illinois, visiting 3 homes that have used electrification in them in this historic neighborhood. Oak Park is a Chicago suburb best known as longtime home of famed architect Frank Lloyd Wright, as well as the birthplace of author Ernest Hemingway. We're visiting this 100-year-old home, which is all electric. Let's go take a look. I'm Aaron Stash. Welcome to the Electric Home Show.
Introduce myself. So I'm Ana Garcia Doyle, and this is our home. We have lived here since 2003. The home is 107 years old. It's a 1918 American Foursquare in a historic district, and it is all electric, 100% electric. We have not had any relationship with Nicor since 2012. So I can talk more about that when we're in the kitchen. A couple of things to know. Why did we do this? We have 3 children. We have 1 remaining at home. Everybody keeps leaving. I'm not sure what that's about, but they live in other places now. And so we have this growing family. And we only had 1 bathroom when we moved in, and so it was to get some more space, but also to really live in a way that we really wanted to live. I had started a green team as part of the school district's effort, and we had been involved in these issues, and so we really wanted to have the chance to build how we wanted to live into our home. Like I said, this is in a historic district. I think that when people think about doing green remodel or green building, that they think oh my gosh, it's going to look like a spaceship, what solar panels or whatever, and I hope that as we go through you agree that it feels like every other home on the block, and that we can all be doing this because it really isn't a spaceship, and we're meant to live in these ways, and that there are things that can make it accessible. So I'm really glad that you're all here today. The one change, both upstairs and downstairs, are that we are a stucco home, and like I said, the home is very old, and so the insulation was not very good. So you could feel, you could feel the draft and whatever, right? It's an old home. And so because we're stucco, we drilled holes in outside, and they sprayed something called spray foam, which is an air and vapor barrier. And then on top of it, they added dense pack cellulose, which is basically recycled newspapers. And it blows in wet, and then it expands, and then it fills all the spaces to insulate the wall, right? So that is what's happening. You can't tell, but that's what's happening in the whole front part of the house, okay?
Did they have to do anything on the inside for that, or everything was done outside?
Everything was done outside for the insulation. So I want to pause for a second also and introduce Dorian Brewer from Ailey's Solar. You met Sophia from ComEd, and Dorian and his firm did our solar installation in 2017, which we're really happy about. And we'll talk more about that in the kitchen.
At the time, they had an old garage, and they were going to be pulling that down. And at first, they said, "Well, we just want an array with stilts to just hold up the solar, and we can park under it or something."
Yeah.
The architect, this is the 4th time we said that, right? The architect pleaded with them to put walls on it, have a closed-in garage. They said, "Okay, fine, we'll have that." But the point was, that structure back there is, the reason for it is solar, to run the house off of the array. So it's generated here on site, and it's used on site, and any excess is pumped back to ComEd. They pay for that, each unit, by law. I don't think they would pay if it wasn't required by law, but they do, and they are required. And so that helps pay for the system. It's about 5 years from the initial investment to have all the money come back in incentives to pay for it. Anna said that it was about 35% out of pocket after all the incentives came in for the project. So 65% was paid for various incentives from ComEd and government levels and so on. So that's pretty typical as well for other projects. 5 years is pretty typical as well. So yeah, it's a great way to run your house off of solar.
Hi, I'm Aaron Stash. Thanks for watching the Electric Home Show. If you're a homeowner interested in a healthy, energy-efficient electric home, reach out to us at electrichomecompany.com to schedule your free virtual coffee today. Thanks for watching.
We spend most of our time in here, I must say, I'm sure, families often are spending their time in here. I'm not going to say that much about the finishes and stuff, even though I would really like to, but I know that the focus here is clean energy. So I will make a nod around some finishes, just briefly. So this countertop is made of mesquite wood. It is a weed in the South, and so they bury it and they burn it and they landfill it to eradicate it. And so what makes it sustainable, right, is to create markets for it so that there will be some kind of a demand for procurement. And so that's where this comes from. We are about 90% LED all over the whole house. And these, for instance, are not LED, but they are made out of recycled bottle glass and metal from the Philippines, which is where my family is from. And so it's just thinking about, like, as you're making these decisions, right, with your project or whatever, what are the offsets? You know, what are the trade-offs? Like, we wanted these beautiful lights, but they're not LED in this moment. So a couple of other things, you'll notice the lockers that are here. We got those off of Craigslist. They were blue. They're from a high school in Indiana that was redoing all their stuff and like literally casting off hundreds of these lockers. So we could get these on the cheap, and we just spray painted them a color that we liked, right? So we did not have somebody come in and make something out of new wood, and right? So it's like, what already exists, right? What already exists? So this house runs on geothermal energy as well as solar. And when we were doing the geothermal, our contractor told us that if we only had 2 appliances in the whole house, that would prohibit us from being all electric, and that would be the stove and the dryer. I had no idea that the dryer ran on gas, no idea. And so they had to pry the old stove out of my hands because I cook a ton, and the gas stove was just like, I was upset about it, to be honest. But this is better. I love it. It's super easy to control. And I will say that I don't have to take my sweater off when I'm cooking dinner because I'm not heating the ambient air with a flame. I am putting a pot on that is activated by magnets. The magnets heat the pot heats the food, and it's all happening directly right there, right? It's not involving the room. It's involving the food, right? And so the only change that we had to make was that we had to make sure that if you put a magnet on the pot, that it would stick. Other than that, most of our pots worked. I mean, it's not a big to-do, and we didn't have to change anything about how we cook or what kind of recipes we use. It's the same thing. It's faster and it's easier to control. So that's the induction. In a row now is that in 2012, when we stopped using gas, right, and moved back into the house after the rehab, we were getting calls and emails and letters, all 3, from NICOR. They were like, we don't know what's going on at your property, but there is no gas happening there, and we can't be responsible if anything. And we were like, we broke up with you. Don't call us. Don't call us. We are not getting back together. We will never have another gas bill, right? And so that was really a fun thing to be able to say. Also, to Dorian's point, what we did, so there's this handout here. I saw Jim was running through it with you all. There's another copy in there, and then it's also on the TV, and so you can, like, it's on the laptop, so you can just like hit forward on the slides. But it basically shows what Dorian is saying, is that when we look at before the project and after the project, you know, current status, we have an 80% decrease in usage of energy from before to after, and a 75% decrease in cost. And I just can't imagine if we were paying hundreds of dollars to ComEd, because literally it's money in our pocket and the system is now paid for itself, right? So it's like, I don't know, I don't have a better reason except for like, this is how we want to live. And also I will say this, not to depress anybody, but the fact of it is, Dorian has heard me say this already as well, that none of our hopes and dreams are possible in the absence of a livable planet, right? On any front. Career goals, what do you want for your children? None of it is possible in the absence of a livable planet, right? And so if we can do this, then we should do this, right? Now it's really tight, right, in here. And so like if I get sick, we're all getting sick, and then I get sick again because nothing's leaving because we're tight, right? So we have something attached to the geothermal system called an ERV, an energy recovery ventilator, sometimes called HRV, heat recovery ventilator. And what it does is it brings fresh air from the outside into our ducts, into our geothermal system, and it circulates fresh air, like it's on a timer. So it might be like every, I don't even know, every hour or something like this. And so it just does that so that we can ensure that even though we're really have a tight envelope, that we're also not just like trapping like air, you know, in the house.
Okay, this is our geothermal system. This is really the heat pump and the furnace. So outside in the backyard, we have a series of wells. They're called wells. I think we have 6 wells. Those wells are somewhere between 150 and 175 feet deep. So they go down, let's call it 165 feet. A well would be like 1.5 inch, 2 inch PVC, but flexible PVC. And it goes down about 160 feet and comes back up. It's a closed system. And then it's fully pressurized, right? So there's not like gaps in that system. Those wells come up, they connect in the backyard, underneath the ground, about 6 to 8 feet underneath the ground. And then there's a pipe that comes in underneath our foundation and comes up. And that's what some of these things are down here that you see, these pipes. So that's coming in from the outside, and then there's a return one that goes and sends it back out to those wells. And the way that the geothermal system works, this is Jim's explanation, it's not a technical explanation, is basically once you get below about 4 feet, 5 feet, the ground is always 55 degrees. So whether it's the hottest day of the summer or the coldest day in the winter, once you're down there 5 feet or so, you're 55 degrees. So our wells, the connections to all the wells are about 6 to 8 feet underground, and then they go down from there into the ground. And basically what you're doing is you're moving a refrigerant through those wells. So that liquid is always, that refrigerant's always coming into our heat pump here at 55 degrees. So in the summer, if you think about cooling the house, we're bringing a liquid, a refrigerant liquid into the house at 55 degrees. The heat pump doesn't really need to do much work. It goes through these coils. The coils will be cool because it's 55 degrees, and then the fan unit will blow across the coils, and that's our cooling. So we can cool our house to 60 degrees if we really wanted to, and it wouldn't really cost us any money because you're using that heat. It's called a heat sink sometimes because you're dumping that heat into the ground and you're pulling cold heat into the summertime. In the wintertime, it works kind of the same way. You're bringing 55 degree refrigerant into the house. You're putting it into the heat pump. Again, I'm not an expert technically, but you're bringing it into the heat pump. The heat pump is taking that liquid and turning it into a vapor, creating some heat, but you're lifting that temperature from 55 up to 80 or 90, running it through the coils, blowing heat across it. So your delta that you have to gain is very small versus a traditional boiler or furnace where you have to go from a much lower temperature and bring it all the way up. So again, it's much more efficient. So that's the kind of unit. About 15 years, we've serviced it 2, maybe 3 times in 15 years. So we virtually don't do, I don't know if that's good, maybe we should do more, but we don't really do much servicing. There's not much to service.
I was going to say, what would need to be serviced?
I mean, you know, obviously they can check all the electrics and the motherboards and the sort of, you know, controller unit. There's a filter, I do change the filter out roughly 2-3 times a year. So there's a huge box of filters. I mean, they're, you know, they're real skinny, but it's just like any air filter. So there's a little slot that you put, but I just do that, right? That's not a big deal. We had to replace our fan. So we did replace our fan a number of years ago. So we have an HRV/ERV system. It's actually, if you go look at the spray foam, if you poke your head in and you can see the spray foam, but if you turn your head to the left, you'll see all these like insulated ducts, round duct, and there's a big box. And that box is the ERV energy recovery ventilator and a heat recovery ventilator. And again, go back to insulation, insulate, insulate, insulate. So our house is so well insulated that you don't get a lot of air exchange in the house, right? Unless you have a window open. So what that unit does is it takes the air from the house and pushes it out through this box. And as that air goes out, fresh air from outside is coming in. And they're mixing, and it's heating up the air that's coming into the house or cooling the air that's coming into the house down in the summer. And it's exchanging that air, but it's also then bringing fresh air into our house on a regular basis. So we have a HRV system in there. So if you poke your head and look to the left, you'll see that. We told Dorian, talk to Dave, our architect, and tell Dave how to build the garage. So this garage was built for that slope and for those solar panels. That was the whole garage was designed around that. It wasn't designed to be a garage. So when you look at this, you'll see the eaves maybe stick out a foot or more than you might otherwise expect on a house. They stick down a foot or 2 more than you might expect. And the same thing is on the alley side. And we did that because that enabled us to get an entire another row of solar panels. So we were at about 40 panels. And by bringing that out, bringing that down, We got a whole nine, so we're at 48 solar panels up there on that garage. It is a 15.6 kilowatt system, so it is a pretty large system. The house was done, again, 15 years-ish. This was done about 6 years ago. Before we did this and installed the solar, we looked at how much electricity we consumed in the house. Again, we had already done the geothermal, the all-electric, and all that. And when the year before we did the garage to now, we have had an 80% reduction in our electricity consumption net because of what we're generating, and a 75% reduction in what we pay for electricity net because of what we're producing. So that's the impact that had on sort of the overall sort of, and there's some papers and stuff inside. There's data I can share with you all because we printed it all out.
Your gas bill is gone too.
We have no gas bill. Anna likes to say we broke up with the gas company. They actually called us a few months after we moved back in. Yeah, so if you all heard that story, it's a pretty funny story. She's like, yeah, no, we broke up with you. Yeah.
Thanks to Anna and Jim for letting us tour their home. If you want to break up with your gas company, reach out to us at electrichomecompany.com to schedule a free virtual coffee today. Finally, thanks to the Oak Park Climate Action Network for organizing this clean energy open house. For more information, visit opcan.org and check out the next date for the tour on April 6th, 2025. We'll see you there. I'm Aaron Stash. Thanks for watching the Electric Home Show. Like and subscribe for more. If you're an industry professional interested in joining our network, reach out to us at electrichomecompany.com. Thanks for watching.